Hi guys, we're here live in our studio. My name is Alex and I'm here with Jason Merkel. And today we're going to talk to you about the new E-flite Delta Ray One. We're pretty excited about this new product. We haven't had a kind of a beginner product in a long time.
Right.
So we're pretty excited about bringing this one to market. One of the first questions that I want to ask, some people are asking about, oh, how is this different versus the UMX F27?
Yeah, I actually brought one to show because a lot of people have asked that question. And so, really quick, we don't call the Delta Ray One a UMX airplane. So we have the UMX series in E-flite, which stands for Ultra Micro Extreme. And the idea is that those are ultra micro aircraft that have more capabilities than a lot of other traditional aircraft. Now, some might argue, hey, the UMX Radian is not necessarily an extreme performance airplane, but it offers a level of performance that's kind of beyond a trainer. And so the Delta Ray One is an ultra micro trainer. And so we don't call it UMX. The F-27 is a UMX airplane, a UMX series airplane. And one of the things I wanted to show was the size difference. And so they're both technically ultra micro class. The F-27, though, it's built for one thing, and that's to go fast. It also can fly slow because it's a delta wing airplane, so it does have a very wide performance envelope. But the Delta Ray One is intended to fly slower, lighter on the sticks, lighter on the controls, give you more time to react and respond. But what's also neat about it, because it is a delta wing design, is the way it does fly. It penetrates the wind better than a more traditional design. It lends itself very well to this bank and yank style of flying, which you can do with the F-27 as well. The F-27 is 3S compatible. The Delta Ray One is only 2S compatible. So you can't put 2S in the F-27. You can't put 3S in the Delta Ray, and that's intentional. We wanted you to fly the Delta Ray as more of a either trainer or not necessarily high-speed aerobatic aircraft. The F-27 is intended to go super fast if you want to. And so again, big size difference, a very different airfoil section, for example, a lot thinner wing, a lot thicker wing on the Delta Ray, a little bit of an undercamber to a degree on the airfoil shape. And so the Delta Ray One, again, it's just intended to be a very, very different type of aircraft.
Now, comparing this with the regular Delta Ray that we have for a number of years, I see a couple of differences there too, right?
Yes, so original Delta Ray was a twin. Twin brushed motors, actually. So it's kind of it's got some age on it now, and some years ago we still had kind of a mixture of brushed airplanes and brushless powered airplanes. These days we're gravitating more and more towards brushless only. And so when you go brushless twin, it's not cheap. You have to have two ESCs. It adds to the cost substantially. So when we said, hey, we'd love to bring the Delta Ray design to a wider audience, one of the things we talked about was, how do we get the price down? How do we get the size down so you can comfortably fly it in a typical soccer field, let's say? So the bigger Delta Ray, an experienced guy can fly it easily in a soccer field. But a less experienced pilot, let's say a person has no experience at all, they really need a lot more space to fly it in. And so we wanted to come up with an airplane that was the right size, the right price point, to work well for as wide of an audience as possible. And so I would hand this to a beginner in a soccer field and let him go to town. I think they'll be fine flying it around. And so, again, single motor, it is a pusher now. And the nice thing about being a pusher airplane is that you're less susceptible to prop, spinner, motor mount damage in a crash. We've got a nice rubber nose here, which is really cool. And so the nice thing about the rubber nose is it does absorb some of the impact. The airplane itself is made from EPO foam. And EPO is fantastic because obviously it's got a little spring and give to it. It's not EPS foam. A lot of our ultra micros are EPS. The F-27 is not. That is actually EPO. The Delta Ray One is also EPO, and again, it makes it even more durable than even just the pusher configuration does.
Awesome. So I know there's a lot of technology in this one particular. Let's talk first about out of the box, how it comes.
Yeah, out of the box, it comes just like this. There's nothing to assemble. You don't have to put the fin on. You don't have to put the prop on. You literally take this thing out of the box, and if you buy the ready-to-fly version, it's already bound to the transmitter, and you can go fly. Charge the battery, of course. If you're buying this in the bind-to-fly basic version, let's say you're an experienced pilot, all you have to do is pull it out of the box, plug in a battery to enter bind mode, bind it to your transmitter, and go. It's that simple. And so the ready-to-fly version does come with the transmitter. 6-channel transmitter. It does come with a battery, a 2-cell, 280 milliamp battery, our typical Ultra Micro Series battery, which has the 3-pin connector with the balance connector and the main power in one connector. And then also it does come with a DC charger and an AC power supply. And then I would highly recommend to beginner or even experienced guys our E-flite 4-port charger for ultra-micro batteries. That thing is very convenient. You can charge 4 of these batteries very quickly. And so again, it comes out of the box, everything you need in the ready to fly version. You don't have to buy anything else. It's got AA batteries for the transmitter even. So it's a one-box purchase. If you're an experienced pilot, it's coming out of the box ready to go. If you probably already have a couple 2-cell 280s, you can slam those in and go fly very quickly. It's a really nice out-of-box experience, but it's also packed with a lot of other features.
Right. So let's talk about safe. What do we have? Do we have 3 flight modes?
Yeah, so a little different. A lot of our E-flite airplanes now have Safe Select. Right. But you'll notice a lot of our Hobby Zone airplanes or the E-flite Apprentice have the progressive flight modes. So beginner mode, which is similar to Safe Select in some ways. So in beginner mode, you have the pitch and bank angle limits, and so you can't roll the airplane upside down, you can't pitch it upside down. So this helps prevent you from getting into an orientation that results in a crash. And so that's really great. It also then has self-leveling. You let go of the sticks, boop, pops back to level. Right. So that is a really great mode for beginner, obviously. The next step up, the intermediate mode, so like on the transmitter included with the RTO, we've got a 3-position switch here. All the way back is beginner mode. You flip to intermediate mode, and now in intermediate mode, you have bank and pitch limits, but much more angle to them. So instead of having like 30 or 40 degree limitation, now you've got almost a 90-degree limitation, and so you have a lot more freedom to learn to maneuver the airplane a bit more aggressively. When you let go of the stick, it does not self-level. It'll inherently self-level kind of the way that this airplane does, because it's got a little bit of a polyhedral wing into it, but basically the idea is that you can step your way from beginner to intermediate before you get into experienced mode. And in experienced mode, AS3X is active to help smooth things out, but there's no self-leveling. There is no
That was one of the questions
limits
that we saw yesterday. People were hanging up in the experience mode. But in experience mode, it's like just AS3X. There's no safe.
Exactly. There's no. So AS3X is stability to a degree. It's smoothing things out, making the airplane more stable and windy conditions, blustery conditions, but the idea is that in expert mode, it's just like flying one of our typical ultra-micro aircraft equipped with AS3X. Right. And so it allows you to fly it in more wind than you would have normally flown an ultra-micro airplane in. And this design, I got to tell you, it just works really, really well. I would fly this in a lot more wind than most of our ultra-micros, in part because of AS3X, but also just in part, I think, because of the delta wing design, the airfoil, the amount of power we've got, the elevons are relatively large, we've got good control, and so it just flies really, really well, even in wind.
Awesome, awesome. So I understand there's a optional Safe Plus feature.
There is, exactly. Yeah. So this has SAFE in it. Again, the 3 flight modes of SAFE. And then in the past, we've had a couple of airplanes. For example, we started with the Glass Air Sportsman. It's kind of our first iteration of the SAFE Plus technology. And then we had that technology in the Champ S Plus, Hobby Zone Champ S Plus. And then we've most recently implemented it in the Hobby Zone Carbon Cub S Plus. Okay. And over those iterations of products, we've actually improved the software substantially and the hardware interactions and everything to a degree to where now it's a lot more reliable, now it's a lot more robust, it's working very well, but there's pluses and minuses. So with Safe Plus, which is basically GPS-enabled drone technology, you now have really cool features. For example, you install it and you've got auto land. You hold the button down and it will land where you initialized it. Very, very close. Very good accuracy all by itself. It also has virtual fence, so you can't fly too far away out of the line of sight, for example. And then it also has holding pattern. You hit a button, it'll kind of pause the flight. It'll circle, kind of loiter above the initialization point. These are great GPS-enabled features. So those are awesome benefits, but the one catch is you do have to do a little more work to get the airplane initialized and ready to fly. And so I think a lot of people like the idea, but not everybody loves the idea of having to read the manual. You got to learn more from it. We do have a quick start guide that walks you through it. There's some extra steps involved before you can get into the air. So for that reason, in the Delta Ray One, we made it optional. You don't have to use Safe Plus if you don't want to. You don't have to purchase the GPS unit separately. However, if you do, you can buy the unit. It's effectively similar to the unit that we had in the Champ S Plus. Right. But it's now sold as a separate entity to where you can connect this to the control unit, the flight control that's already installed in the aircraft, and now you have the Safe Plus GPS drone technology.
Now, you install it What do you put, like Velcro or double-sided tape? Or?
Yeah, basically some double-sided tape, and it kind of sticks down in the nose. There's a compartment for it, and then there's an extension that it plugs into, and boom, you're ready to go. It's extraordinarily easy to install, and once you do install it, you will have to calibrate it. The calibration is not the hokey-pokey dance you used to have to do with the Glass Air Sportsman. Over the years, we've refined that process to where now it's nice. You don't have to do a whole lot. It's kind of like rotate the airplane a couple times this way. You're done.
I think it's twice front and twice sideways.
Exactly. It's a lot easier than it was. A lot easier. And so, again, SAF Plus, amazing technology, and you can have it if you want, but we're not making everybody pay for it that doesn't necessarily want it. We're offering it separately, and I think it's a good value. It's not inexpensive, but I think what you get with it is pretty amazing. And I think it also is probably like the killer way to get into an FPV airplane platform.
Right. And also, as a side note, even if you have the GPS unit on it, you can actually turn it off too. So let's say you're training somebody, but you say you want to fly hard or bank and yank or whatever, you can turn it off and then have it just like
exactly. You can disable the GPS. You can plug in the GPS, but then disable the functionality of it if you choose to from flight to flight. Or let's say you go to an environment, it's just not getting good GPS connection. So you can just disable it and fly without.
That's awesome. It's awesome. So one of the questions that I heard yesterday is this going to replace the Hobby Zone Delta Ray at all?
So it's not really intended to replace the Delta Ray. The Delta Ray is kind of a different animal, but that said, the Delta Ray is a bit old now. And I'd say, inherently it's kind of lost its luster, so to speak, because the brushed motors is kind of a turnoff, surprisingly, to a lot of people. It doesn't matter, it has plenty of power, but a lot of people wanted it brushless. And yes, we talked about the possibility of making it brushless. The downside would have been it would have been well over $200 as a ready to fly. This is sub $150.
Exactly.
Single motor, it's smaller, you can fly it in more spaces. So again, it's not a one-for-one replacement. We wanted to have the Delta Ray flight envelope and performance in a smaller package, more affordable package, so that's why we came out with this. And to be honest, this probably more replaces the Champ S Plus than it replaces the Delta Ray.
Right. Now, an issue that we had, especially when we announced and released the Optera Flying Wing, was the hand launch.
Yeah.
Some people got hang up in how to launch it and what's the proper way to launch. How about this one? Is it easy to launch?
It is very easy to launch. The large Optera is a big airplane and it doesn't have really great place to hold it on the bottom, and so it takes a pretty firm grip with your fingers and a really good toss with a kind of an extended arm. Otherwise the airplane will come down and hit you. And so since this is a pusher and a flying wing configuration, we talked about what are the options for launching it. And so on the Optera 2 meter, we just have the holes in the bottom that you put your fingers into. That's not great for everybody. On the smaller Optera 1.2 meter, we put a big keel on the bottom, and that was also helpful. But after test flying this with Safe Active and everything, we found out that you really don't need to do the kind of typical overhand launch, and that's uncomfortable for some people. Not everybody knows how to throw a baseball or a football well, right? And so throwing an airplane is a whole other skill that you have to keep it level. You don't want the nose too high. You don't want the airplane banked off to the side. And so to eliminate all those problems, we said, hey, we'll just skip that. You can kind of launch it by the tail. You can grab it by the wingtip and just kind of flick it. And it goes.
Just like a frisbee, right?
Basically, a little frisbee style. It doesn't take a lot of skill. It doesn't take a lot of education. In the video, you'll see a bunch of just little launches. It just takes a quick lob and go. So full power. If you want, you can have it in beginner mode, in the basically safe enabled mode, and that makes it super easy to launch. You launch it, it climbs out perfectly. You can flip off into experience mode, or if you're beginner, you can keep it in beginner mode. It really doesn't get much easier to launch than that.
Okay, so you mentioned FPV. Is this FPV ready?
It is, yeah. So we've got the cables in there. You do have to buy an extension. There's a connection in there for it. You have to buy an extension for it. What's really neat is we have built into the flight control some really cool OSD information. A lot of what we had in the Optera 1.2 meter is available here. So if you install, for example, the SAF Plus module plus the FPV setup, you have a really killer FPV platform. You've got an airplane now that if you ever lose video, you hit a button, it'll come back home, basically. You hold the button down long enough, it'll land for you. It is an amazing FPV platform, and maybe that's not for everybody. We totally understand that, but we, again, provided the provision, so if you wanted to easily power a camera and a VTX, you can do that right out of the box.
Awesome. So what's the battery size and the flight time for?
So the typical 2S 280 milliamp battery we have with the 3-pin connector is the battery of choice. Typical flight times anywhere from 5 to 10. You could probably eke out to 15 minutes if you went up and just cruised around. And if you thermaled the thing a little bit, you could probably get even longer than that. So I'd say in most people's hands, launching at full throttle, maybe throttling back and just cruising around at a decent speed most of the flight, you usually get 8 to 10 minutes.
Now, I see a lot of questions coming on our Facebook feed about flying indoors.
flying indoors, yeah, I would say it's definitely an indoor-capable airplane. Obviously, you can't fly it in your living room,
Right.
But you can fly it and maybe in a single basketball court gym. If you're an experienced pilot, I would say that's definitely
Depending on your
doable.
skill level.
But if you've got a little bit more space, like 2 basketball courts, perfect. If, let's say you fly to Golf Dome in the wintertime with your buddies, great, phenomenal space. It is not super fast. You can slow it down more than, say, the UMX F-27. You can actually slow it down more than some of our mono-wing, or kind of typical mono-wing UMX airplanes. So yeah, I think it's great for indoors.
So the RTF comes with the everything in the box ready to go. For the guys that want to buy the BinoFly but doesn't have they don't have a radio, what radio do we suggest?
You
pretty
just
much
need
anyone, right?
pretty much any Spectrum equipped transmitter that is 5 or more channels. So you do need that extra 5th channel to activate the safe flight modes. And so if you have a 2-position switch, let's say for channel 5, like a gear switch, you'll have beginner mode, you'll have experienced mode. If you have a 3-position switch, you can set it so you have always experienced mode. You can set it so you have 2 beginner modes. You can set it so you have beginner, intermediate, expert mode. We do all outline the setups in the manual for most typical Spectrum transmitters. So obviously the current generation of DX6E, DX8E, the DX6, 8, 9, IX12, even some of the older radios, DX7S, DX8 original. Yeah, all of that's going to be functional with this airplane.
All right, cool. So we have a question from Aaron about flying it in sub 10 mile an hour winds.
Sub 10, no problem. No problem. In fact, I was flying it in over 10 mile per hour winds, which is, again, unusual for me in an ultra micro. I have flown ultra micros in 10 mile per hour winds, and I thought, it's a lot of work. It's okay.
You can fly, but it's not.
AS3X makes it possible. Without AS3X, I wouldn't even try.
Yeah.
But this thing, the combination of AS3X and this design, this platform is just really, really amazing. It has characteristics that are unlike most airplanes because of the delta wing design, because of the planform, because of the airfoil that we use. It's got really good power. It's got good speed. It just penetrates the wind, and it just locks in unlike a lot of ultramicro models do.
Awesome, awesome. So, Kyle, do we have any YouTube questions?
Yeah. What is this? Is this good for an experienced pilot as well, or are they going to still be having fun?
So the question is it good for an experienced pilot as well? And the answer is yes. In fact, every guy around here that already knows how to fly absolutely loves this thing. Right. And we're all blown away by how fun it is to fly. It's just a 3-channel airplane. It's sold as a trainer and ready-to-fly form, but as a BinoFly basic airplane, you take this thing out, you can fly it in front of your house, in your backyard comfortably a lot of times. You can fly it at the flying field, late in the evening when you're just looking for something to kind of wind down for the night. It's really bank and yank capable. Does great rolls, tight loops, can fly inverted. It's very, very capable and entertaining for an experienced pilot as well.
Awesome, awesome. So let's talk about completion levels, price, and when it's going to be available.
So the ready-to-fly version includes the 6-channel transmitter, the battery, the DC charger, the AC adapter, the AA's, everything you need to fly it. I would recommend getting a couple extra batteries. Right. Again, no GPS unit. That is sold separately. But that ready-to-fly version is $139.99, so $140 US. It's a brushless powered airplane with incredible technology inside. It's EPO foam. It's a really good value. And then we also have the BinoFly basic version for $30 less, so $109.99, so $110 US. BinoFly basic version is the airframe with the power system, the servos, the control unit installed, ready to bind to your Spectrum equipped transmitter. You also need to have, of course, a 2S 280 milliamp battery to fly it with. And both of those versions are going to be available at the same time. Okay. Right now, it's looking like the week of Thanksgiving, give or take, is when these are going to be hitting stores and hitting shelves. And so if you want one, though, I would definitely recommend pre-ordering it with your favorite local hobby shop, your favorite online shop, HorizonHobby.com, TowerHobbies.com. Basically, you can get this thing in your hands potentially for Thanksgiving. You'd be flying it on Thanksgiving.
All right, so I see a question here about the rudder being functional, and it's not. It's not.
Yeah, it doesn't need it, so to speak. Obviously, it's got elevons, so you've got aileron and elevator control. And we kept it simple, kept it light, kept it inexpensive. Adding a rudder, yeah, it can do cool things if you add a rudder, but it does add expense. It would probably add $20 and some weight and some complication. And so we kept this one simple.
Awesome. Question from David asking about the price of the GPS unit.
The GPS unit is sold separately at $39.99. And so it is available, it should be available at the same time the airplanes are in stock. In fact, I think we do have some in stock already because, again, this unit was used in some other aircraft as well. And so you'll be able to purchase that either, when you buy the airplane, you can buy it separately after the fact. You do not have to buy it and install it right from the get-go. You can add it whenever you're ready to.
And the part number for the GPS unit, just so everybody, so it's EFL 9512.
Yeah,
So you can look it
EFL
up, of course.
9512, exactly.
So.
And so it should be in the optional parts list
Right.
for the airplane. It'll be in the instruction manual, and so a lot of stores will probably stock this in addition to the airplanes as well.
It's awesome. Kyle, do we have any other questions before we close it out?
When will this be available overseas?
So the question is, when will it be available overseas? With a lot of our airplanes, the shipments usually go out about the same time to both the U.S. and then Europe, and so
Right.
it should be available in Europe probably a little later, though, more like in December timeframe.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I don't see any other questions, so thanks, Jason, for stopping by, and
Yeah, thanks
it's
for
going to be fun. So happy landings. Thank you.
Thank you.